Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the show. I'm Steve Fall, but on today's edition, I am talking to Valentina Rossi. How you doing today? Oh,
I'm great. How you doing?
we gotta do it. We're gonna do it. We can do it together. Here we go.
Mwah.
Oh, it feels so good to be here talking to you because it seems that you're all over the place. I've seen you pop up on AEW. I've seen you pop on NXT. But first, let's start from the beginning. How did you get into wrestling? Was it a friend, a family member? Maybe you were trainer surfing?
So I was a ballerina for 20 years and I got to a point where I was like, do I still love this? Am I just doing it because it's routine at this point? And I just really was just over it. And I was trying to think of like what I actually loved about dance compared to just like other things. And it was just like the performing part of it and like the athleticism. So I actually applied to like be on a reality show and it was like kind of like tough enough, but it was just like all women and like the winner, it was like a competition show and the winner got like a contract at the end and they wound up never going through with the show. And I was like pretty bummed and I was like, oh, that would have been like a cool thing. So I started like Googling like how to become a professional wrestler and like there's no direct path
Yeah.
for anyone unless you make a recruit page and then they just like call you for a tryout.
Right.
But there's no like direct path. So I moved to LA and I kind of like forgot about it. Not forgot about it, but just put it aside. Because I was like, like maybe I'm just getting excited over something that's not there, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just kept like popping up. And I was like, is this a sign? Because then the show contacted me again after I'd already moved to LA. They did another round of castings. And this was like literally 2 years later. So I was like, oh, that's so weird. And then it happened again. My friend was on the seat, like on the show Glow on Netflix. And I was like, oh, that would have been like a cool thing to do. And she's like, yeah, you should like try it. And I was like, oh. And then like a few weeks later, I was on LA Castings, which is this big like website for actors and models. And they were casting for WOW. And I was like, what's this? So I went and I like had my suitcase because I'm an Eagles fan. And that was when they were at the Super Bowl. So I like got my suitcase, went to the tryout, and then flew home for the weekend and they called me and they're like, you got to come back. We want you to like start training. And I was like, I'm on it. So I missed the parade because I was like, screw this. The Eagles suck anyway. And it's kind of won by chance. And then I started training with WOW and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like just instantly fell in love with it. And then COVID hit, you know, and I was like, wow, that was the only thing keeping me in LA. So I packed up and I moved to Florida and been here ever since.
Wow. Wow. That's a journey. That is a journey. So at the tapings of for your training though, at least, did you have to sign a contract that said like, oh, you're going to be this person, like you can't be yourself. We're going to create a character for you. So you're bottled into this group no matter what.
At the WOW casting?
Yes.
So they just the casting was just like, do you have any athletic background? Tell us about yourself, show us personality. And I was like, oh, I'm from Jersey. And they were like, oh my God, Jersey, like you've got so much personality. And I was like, so they off the bat, they kind of just like got the whole Jersey girl thing.
Yeah.
And then once I was like in it, they're like, we got to start developing a character. And like the Italian thing was always like my first go-to just because like it is me. It's very easy for me to like play up.
Yeah.
Like it's not at all.
It's not hard for you to be that person.
Right. So I was like, oh my God, like this is perfect. And it's actually been fun because I've kind of just like dived deeper into like my culture. Like I've just like learned so much more about it since then. And like my mom's always been big on like teaching me how to like cook and that kind of stuff. But yeah, they were just like, when we look at you, we just see like Sopranos. And I was
that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, right?
Right.
But I've seen recent pictures on your Instagram showing you at the most recent tapings for Women's of Wrestling, correct?
So I wasn't at this last taping because they did tape this month.
Okay.
I did the taping before. Yeah, so they're kind of exclusive. You can't do other TV tapings if you're with WOW. So I would have had to like given up NXT and Dark.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't ready to do yet. So yeah, I didn't go back this past taping, and I was actually at Dark during the WoW tapings. So
interesting. So moving forward, you're not involved with women's wrestling.
Probably not.
Interesting. Interesting. I did interview Izzy.
Right.
I interviewed her, and after we were done, she brought up, oh, well, next time you want to go to do this, you have to go through them, women's wrestling.
Right.
And at the same time, that's great for women's wrestling to be around. But at the same time, I feel like you're shooting yourself in the foot when you say, oh, well, we don't want you to work for anybody else. But if you're on Dark and you're on NXT, in my brain, you're bringing more eyes to women's wrestling because of your exposure on those bigger platforms. Right. That's me thinking.
That's also how I was seeing it. But I don't really understand their reasoning. I didn't get too deep into it, but
right. But
because I was like, oh, everyone knows wrestling. If they see you on this, they're gonna know that this person, and they're also very strict about the name thing, because I'm Adriana Gambino there. And I came up with the name, but they own it. So I was like, it's fine. I'll just use a different name.
Right. And I've noticed that too with a lot of women's wrestling over the past couple of years. When the pandemic happened, I would see a women's wrestling Twitter account with some generic, their character name. But then I would recognize that person. I'm like, wait, no. That is, their real name. And suddenly you're like, why would you confuse your own audience with two different names of people who might not be relatively known? You just kind of brought it up. You've been only in the business or in wrestling for the past, 3-4 years?
Less than that, probably under 2 years now. Cause I was in it for WoW. And then I think I had my first match there after 3 months, which was not ready for that, but
so
it's fine. It happened.
You kind of made my point where it's you're not established as the on the top of the card of every match yet. So yet them saying, oh, we want to change your name, and you can't be on other shows to get better for us. That's confusing to me. I know years ago, Impact Wrestling had that kind of beef with Ring of Honor over that situation, but yet a company so new, you should probably be playing ball with everybody. But
I think they want just people who are only going to wrestle for WoW, because they did have this, because they've been around for 20 years, and a lot of people don't know that because they're just starting to really get well known,
right?
And they pretty much did go on a hiatus for a little bit, and that's probably just the only reason why I was I just really can't sign this contract, because what if you guys go on a hiatus again and I'm under contract for however many years? Yeah. But I know that they something similar happened with Impact. So I know that they were using girls from Impact for a while when they were both on Axis, and then as of recently they don't use people from Impact anymore. I think it was just contract stuff.
Very interesting.
I think they want people who are homegrown, so that they can say we trained them, they're our people,
I understand the business model, but I don't like the business model. that's just me. I talk to people from Impact or NWA, smaller companies, versus AEW versus WWE. They're looking for exposure because of the platform they're on isn't as big as AEW and WWE. And obviously smart on you to say, well, the opportunity's there to be on bigger platforms versus hoping this will work versus this is working.
Yeah. It hurt a little bit, because I was oh, this is where I started. I'm always gonna have a soft spot for them. And I was oh, I feel I'm going through a breakup. They're making me choose. They're giving me an ultimatum. But
your best friend or your boyfriend, I guess, right? Which one are you gonna choose? I don't know. It's a decision. Moving on though, did you realize that there's an article out? It came out in April suggesting your character, Valentina Rossi, a radio host, is mistaken for you moonlighting as a wrestler. Have you seen this article?
It's so funny you're saying this, because I saw this probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I sent it to my boyfriend. I was I'm very confused by this, because at first I thought they thought we were the same person. And for a second I thought she was claiming to be me.
Me too.
And I was like, what? And then I read it and he's like, no. She's saying like, because they asked her like, oh, have you ever been in a wrestling ring? And she said something like, don't put it like past me or something like that.
Like she would do it.
Right. And that's what she meant. But I was like, oh, is she claiming to beat me? Oh no. And then it was just like a whole thing. There's also like, this is so weird, but there's also like a transgender porn star named Valentina Rossi.
Yeah.
Probably should have looked into the name a little bit more before I chose it. Valentina Rossi is also like a famous motocross.
Yes, I saw that too.
So popular name.
You type that onto Twitter, it is a mess. I'm like, oh, there she is. Oh, wait, no, that's not her. Oh, there she is. No, that's not her. Oh, there she is. That's not her. Okay, this is getting a little more difficult than I thought. But that article obviously gave you more Instagram followers because they use your Instagram in that post. So I'm like, oh, this must be doing well for her. Maybe. But that made me go deeper into Instagram and discovering more pictures like you're modeling. And one of the things I always wanted, I talked to a few models before about this, and what is the most difficult photo that you had to perform in an environment that was not the best for the picture they're looking for? As in, are you in lingerie in snow? Because that's got to be difficult.
I have done photos in lingerie and snow, and I was feeling just like a little too confident about it and was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna do splits in the snow. And probably so painful. It was so painful. And I was so pissed because the photographer used film and he didn't load it properly, so the pictures never came out. So
oh my God. First off, why using film? Why using film in a digital world?
It's like a big thing on the East Coast. I think it's still a little bit on the West Coast as well, but there's a lot of photographers in like New York, Philly, and Jersey that like love film because
it looks different. I get it.
Yeah, it just like looks more artistic. And I went through a phase where I was doing like more artistic modeling, where it was just like me in a forest with like my hair in front of my face, where it's like I just kind of just tried everything out. So I was like, but
that's funny that you bring. So the doing splits and lingerie in the snow. Worst photo shoot you've ever been on?
Yes.
I can imagine many reasons
for myself,
why.
Personally.
Yeah, of course. Not the photographer probably was in a sweatshirt, jacket, hat, and gloves, and he's like, smile or give me those eyes. And you're like, I'm freezing. That's interesting because your Instagram photos, you go down the line and you're like, there is no photo of you doing a split in snow. So. And that's all because of film. And I get it. It's very artistic. I get it. But at the same time, I feel like every reaction.
Like got a picture on my phone or something at the time. Like it was only a few years ago.
God, that sucks. So over the course of a year, you have competed on AEW programming many different times. Now, how does this process work? Do you call them? Do they call you?
So I train at Flatbacks with Sean Spears and Tyler Breeze.
Okay.
And so Sean Dean and Sean Spears work together, obviously. So he pretty much just like, if he thinks you're ready, he'll pitch people towards Sean Dean and be like, hey, I have a student. I think they're ready for a dark match. But beforehand, he makes sure that you have your character stuff down. You're not going to freak out in front of a crowd. You have amazing gear, wrestling etiquette. Like they really like make sure you're ready before you go. So one day I got my gear and he was like, all right, that was the last step. Here's so-and-so's email them, tell them you're my student. And then like the next day I got an email, like you're booked this weekend. And I was like, oh my God. And that's when they were still doing like the loops for AEW in Jacksonville. So I was there for like 6 days. And it was so nerve-wracking, like waiting for my match because it wasn't until the last day. And every day the board would go up and I'd be like, am I on it? Am I on it? And like, there was like a little bit of relief when I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about this today, but tomorrow. And that went on for 5 days. And finally the 6th day, I was like, today's the day. This is it.
That's got to be nerve-wracking. I'd rather be like, get it over with. It's nervous. Yeah. Obviously you're nervous already, but then like the first day is fine, get it over with. But for 5 days of feeling nerves, that's like torture.
Now kind of when I like do the dark tapings in Universal, they'll do like 4 or 5 episodes. And obviously everyone wants to be on like the first or second. I personally don't care as much because I stay the full day anyway. So what's the difference if I'm on first or last?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like you're allowed to leave. I don't know. I just feel like it's good to stay. But sometimes I'll be waiting around all day, or if someone has 2 matches and I'm like, oh, I'm on the 5th episode and I'm wrestling this person, but they have the match on the 2nd episode. So you don't get to put it together until like they're done with that one. And there's a break in between, and it's just, yeah, it's a lot.
Controlled chaos, it sounds like. Now, you recently appeared on an episode of NXT.
Yes.
But you weren't wrestling. Like you were.
Yeah. So I wrestled on NXT back in, I want to say November.
Yeah.
I had a match against Persia Prada. It was a handicap match. Me and another girl versus Persia. And then this time I was there this past Tuesday. Things were just so much different because last time I was there, they still made you like the COVID nose swab thing, wait outside and get cleared. So like I didn't know what to expect this time, since like they're not really doing that protocol. You just it's as an extra, you have to be vaccinated. So I was just like waiting in the lobby, like, so like, when am I gonna get checked in? And I like texted the guy who books us, and I was like, hey, he's like, I'm actually not there today. Just go into medical and get cleared. And I was like, okay. But since they're doing like the tryout right now, like none of the usual people are there. They didn't have their doctors with them. And I was like, oh, because call time's noon and the doctor didn't get there till 6 or like 5:30. And I was like, oh, like if I am doing anything, I won't know now until like 5:30. But I did like a little segment in the audience. They just wanted people to bookend one of the wrestlers that had like a promo in the audience. Just I think just because like, you know, fans, they never know how like fans are gonna act. Like so they wanted like 2 extras like bookending him.
Right. They wanted a certain reaction, so they asked you to show up there and give the reaction they wanted, correct?
Yeah.
Right. That it reminds me when like I was in the Thunderdome randomly, and I don't know if you've ever been in the Thunderdome for those pandemic episodes of WWE, but like there's a guy telling you what to say while you're in the camera. He's like, "Oh, here comes Randy Orton. You're gonna boo him." And so all of us are like, "Boo!"
Yeah, it's like crazy to see that kind of stuff. Like, because when I first moved to Florida, I went to like 1 or 2 episodes of NXT just like as an audience member, because I was like, oh, let me like see what this is like. And that's when they had like the glass up, and they only would let in like maybe at the max like 50 people, and everyone would have like their own pods. And I was like, this is crazy. And then there'd be someone in the corner like with the headset on being like, louder, like to all the fans, because there's only a few of us.
Yeah. So
it was like crazy.
Oh my God. And those are long tapings too, right? Those are the times when you'd have to be there for like 10, 12 hours a day shooting 4 to 5 episodes. I remember at one point, there was a story online, maybe you can confirm this, that they were forcing you to stand up the whole time for 12, 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah, they had like a few people that like if they were in wheelchairs or something, like they would like obviously give them a pass. But if like someone was old or something, they would like let them sit in between. And my first time there, like I was like, oh, I just like want to look cute. Like I always just want to look my best. And I was in heels, and I was like, oh my God, I hate myself for wearing these shoes right now. Like I was so mad at myself because I was like, oh, my feet, like I'm just dying. And the second I got in my car, I just like threw my shoes off.
Yeah. Just
like never again.
Threw out the window, driving home. Like that was a terrible decision. Tomorrow it's sneakers. Wow.
Literally the first thing I do, like I have, do you know what UFOs are?
No.
They're like recovery flip-flops for athletes, like mostly like runners that run marathons and they need like recovery for their feet the next day.
Yeah.
I live in these shoes, and I will keep them in my car. I'll wear them to drive when I go to like the dark tapings. I'll wear them there, and the second I like park, I put on my heels, whatever, and then when I get back in my car, I take them off and put my UFOs on. They're just waiting for me.
I do that with sandals, and even in the winter, like I'm like, oh, it's 20 degrees outside. I'm going to drive in my sandals to work, and then drive, put your shoes on, boots, whatever, swap them out. Yeah. I used to do it all the time too.
Yeah, these are like a weird, like memory foam or something that they're so comfy.
Oh my God. That sounds amazing. So earlier you did mention you were at the first Women's of Wrestling tapings, and that was the one where the audience was surrounding the building because they wanted to come in.
Yeah.
So is there word inside? Are people telling you like, dude, the crowd, like they can't let they're pushing people away because so many people want to come in here, and that must be feeling. You must feel pretty good when you hear that about yourself on the card.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy to me because like this venue is obviously smaller than the last one we had, but I just was not expecting it. And they were giving us updates, but not many, and like delayed, because my brother was waiting in line and he was like, oh, we just sat down. Oh, they just made us clear out. Oh, this. And I was like, oh my God, like what is going on? And like the fire marshal just wound up like giving them a hard time and being like, gonna let in this many people. And we had the balcony open at the top and they made us close it because they said it's dangerous, someone could fall. I was like, do you know what we're doing in the ring? It's much more dangerous. And like, why is there a balcony if people can't sit up there?
Right.
Like, I just don't understand. I think they're just like busting our balls because they were just like mad.
Oh my God, what in the world? Close the balcony? Like, why would a stadium build the rafters up top if they were afraid someone would fall down? I've gone to arenas and concerts where I feel like I'm climbing up with my hands because I'm going so far up. Like, oh, I need a Sherpa.
You're like walk up the steps and you're like, just don't look back, and you're like,
yeah. Or you walk down the steps and you're thinking, if I trip, I'm going down as a ball, and I'm going to end up flying, hit the guardrail, and then fly over the edge. Like, and and this arena, I'm not sure what the capacity was, but that's insane that they shut down the balcony.
I was going out on a flight that night, so me and a few other girls were like, oh my God, like what if like we miss our flight, like what's going on? Because we went straight from the show, we went to the hotel, got our bags, and just went straight to the airport. But it wound up being fine with timing, and everything wound up working out. But we were like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like it was just a lot.
That's awesome though. That's pretty cool. I gotta say, that's it's great for any wrestling company to have your crowd wrapping around the building, not be able to get in. That's good for the wrestlers and the company, and the people outside are effing pissed. Like they're not going to be happy about that. But thank you so much for being here, talking about your wrestling career, talking about your involvement with the AEW, NXT. It's been a blast. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.